Hello, everyone, and welcome back to my channel, chapter 905. If you took the time to listen to my first episode in audio form, I just want to say thank you. But moving forward, God willing, I do intend for all of my episodes to be visual. There were some technical difficulties with the first episode's visuals, but we move forward. So, judging by the title, I'm sure a lot of people might already know the definition of FOMO, but for those who don't, it's defined as fear of missing out. So early in my walk with Christ, I can say I definitely struggled with this. And even now, I still have resurfacing feelings of FOMO. Honestly speaking, I feel like a lot of my hesitancy towards giving my life to Christ at an early age came from a fear that I was going to miss out. I didn't want to restrict myself from what the world had to offer, and I felt like in order to gain Christ, I had to lose myself. But from an adolescent to age 25, I can say I lived just as the world did until I was hit with what Peter says in 1 Peter chapter 4, verse 3. You have spent enough time in the past doing what pagans choose to do. And I was like, okay. I feel like the Bible often speaks on us being set apart, but no one ever really talks about that sucky feeling that comes from being apart from the world. Early in my walk with Christ, I was still attending secular day parties and events, but in going, I decided against doing anything that would defy God while I was there, not really taking into account that my attendance there kinda already did. I was committing to the Lord with my words, but my affections were still in the world. Because I was serving two masters, I was unconsciously trying to keep both happy. I wasn't aware that friendship with the world meant enmity against God. And with all the knowledge that I had acquired, I still seemed to prefer a modified life over a transformed one. But when you know better, you genuinely have to do better. God does call us to come as we are, but He doesn't enable us to stay as we are. I think we oftentimes stay in places we know do not serve us, trying to imitate the presence and the blessings that only God can provide. In John chapter 5, it speaks on a paralyzed man who waited and laid at a pool he believed to have healing properties for 38 years. In the Amplified Bible, verse 6 of this chapter, it says, when Jesus noticed him there lying helpless, knowing that he had been in this condition a long time, he asked him, do you want to get well? When the man said yes, he was then healed. But just like the man at the pool of Bethesda, no matter how long you stay at your version of your pool, hoping that one day it will heal you, it is only Christ that can bring you true healing and restoration. So this past summer was actually the first summer where I made the conscious decision not to attend any secular events. Honestly, it was the first summer where I even submitted my desires over to the Lord fully, and I was requesting for purification and pruning. Because I'm sure many of you may know the feeling, but after the parties and the events are over and the dust begins to settle, you'll realize that you were simply just entertained for a moment, but you weren't necessarily fulfilled. Because it's only God who can actually give you that fulfillment that you are truly seeking. Deep calls to deep. The deepness of our emptiness can only be filled by the fullness of the Lord. Do not be so hungry for something that can fill you temporarily that you trade it in for something like your destiny that can fill you eternally. When we make momentary decisions based on temporary desires, we can actually lose spiritual rights to God's promises for us. Just as Esau did when he traded over his birthright to Jacob for only a meal. When I was serving both God and my desires, I was unconsciously placing myself in self-destructive environments thinking, nah, like I got this, I know myself best. Until those circumstances brought out a version of myself that even I couldn't have predicted. For example, Peter thought he knew he would never deny Jesus until he was faced with the reality of the weakness of his flesh. When Peter learned that he couldn't rely on his strength nor his loyalty to sustain him, he had to turn back to the face of God to receive instructions on how to move forward. In hearing Christ say, feed my sheep, his spirit was now then filled and restored. Even relating back to the story of Peter and Christ, a few months ago, I actually had this eureka moment where I was like, okay, that's what I've been missing. So during this time, I was putting down a lot of worldly things for God, and I was slowly killing my flesh. but I wasn't really picking up anything to in turn feed my spirit. No intimate prayer time, no fasting, no fellowship, just simply a reverence for God. So I kept having this reoccurring circling back to feeling empty feeling. In addition to the feeling of emptiness, as I detached from my past self and I was committing to my renewed self, I was so convinced that if you stop committing sins physically, that you've cured it and you were free from it. But I learned the hard way that the change needs to be from the inside out. If you struggle with, let's say, fornicating, then you have to deal with the inward lust issue that leads you to want to fornicate. I used to think that as long as you stopped physically doing the act of fornication, that you were done with that sin, not really taking into account the importance of our thoughts and of our mind. You cannot pull a weed from its tip and think you've gotten rid of it. Anything that you do not pull from the root will just continue to grow. To ensure that it's dealt with, you have to pull it from the root. Romans chapter 11, verse 16. If the root is holy, so are the branches. When you do kill your old self, it isn't easy. There is grief that may come with it or from it because you're grieving the death of a past version of yourself, a version that may have felt gratifying or comfortable. So give yourself grace. I'm going to end off speaking to anyone who may be experiencing FOMO or may be experiencing the burden of grieving your past self. Or maybe you're even wondering if the world may have something better to offer you than what God promises to offer through obedience. I just want to remind you and myself, because I'm definitely not exempt from this, that the fruits of this world will quickly rot, but the fruits of our spirit can never rot. Focus on your journey with the fruits of the spirit so that it can manifest itself into tangible, good fruit. When we make decisions out of a state of brokenness, desperation, or lust, we are literally farmers sowing bad seeds yet expecting good fruits. Sow the seeds that reside inside the fruits of the spirit, seeds of goodness, patience, self-control, faithfulness, etc. And it is inevitable that you will bear good fruits and you will gain the joys of missing out. Hopefully, someone was able to take something from this and replace their fear of missing out with a joy to miss out on the world for God. If you made it to the end of this episode, I just want to say thank you. I want to say God bless you. And I want to say I hope to see you in the next episode. Thank you again and bye.